All right, this is Town of Monroe Board of Finance special meeting, Thursday, March 30th, 6 p.m. This meeting will be recorded, made available on the town's website pursuant to state law. If you're attending remotely, please remember to mute your microphone unless you are speaking. Anyone participating remotely should state their name and title, if applicable, at the outset of each occasion that purchases speaking. All votes taken during which any member of this body are participating remotely should be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. The chat feature will not be utilized or considered during this meeting. All right, quick roll call. Greg Benno.
Present.
Mary Hall.
Present.
Steve Kirsch.
Present.
Rebecca O'Donnell.
Present.
Jeff Mustapher.
Present.
We've got First Selectman Ken Kellogg.
I'm here.
Ron Banaski.
Here.
Heidi Mead.
Here.
All right, is that everybody?
Mike, you got Frank Duchess as well.
Hi, Frank. Don't worry. You're always hiding on there, mate. Thanks. All right. Well, we just have the budget workshop tonight, so we can open it up. I believe Mr. Kryes asked if he could go first, since he had a prior commitment as well. So if that's okay with everybody, we'll start with him. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
I said it's the Monroe Fire Department. It's no news. There were some looks from the crowd.
You have the Monroe Fire, or you just?
Come for a question.
Okay. Hey, Mike, this is Steve. I've got a question.
Go for it.
For Monroe Fire, starting on page 129 of the budget book. Under apparatus repair and maintenance, there's an increase, and it is described as repair costs beginning to beginning to be observed on a 2009 apparatus. And so there's a question here for you and a question in the opposite direction for the other departments. Is this the 2009 truck that you're also looking to replace in the capital plan? Or are there just multiple 2009 vehicles?
So for the Monroe Fire Department, there's two vehicles that were acquired in 2009. Both of those are in the capital plan, depending on what year you're looking at. The one of those is in, I forget what year, 24 or 25. But the reality is, with none of those approved at this point in time, at the minimum 2-year window until an apparatus will be delivered. That's 2 years subsequent to bonding approval. That's 2 years subsequent to bidding. So if you were looking today with bonding and everything approved, one of those pieces of apparatus would not get delivered until 2025. So seeing that bonding wouldn't be approved, I assume, until sometime in the future, you're looking at even further. So when we look at next year's budget, those repairs and maintenance costs on those 2009 vehicles on an annual basis is becoming to get higher. Naturally, those vehicles are older. They're about 14 years old right now. For things that traditionally maybe hadn't broken in the past are now broken or seeking repair, or just general higher level maintenance on those vehicles. So in addition, as I'm sure we've all experienced in the current macroeconomic environment, inflation, both in the cost of materials and also labor, is significant. So I think at the earlier budget workshop I mentioned, I don't have the figures in front of me, but the labor rate we pay to the vendor who does our repairs and maintenance is up, I think, at least $20 an hour year on year. So you're seeing that cost as well. That's a common vendor that all 3 fire departments use for the repairs and maintenance.
Okay, so that leads me to my second question. I noticed that in the other 2 fire departments, there's not an increase in the maintenance line. Is that the reason for that?
Yes, in Stevenson's case, there would have been an increase in there, but we're presently doing the conversion of engine 302 into a rescue engine. So we'll be removing rescue 320, and there's no maintenance for that. But we're now seeing the same.
The same thing, but you've got a vehicle that's been in place. The other question that I have is, at the town council, at the last town council meeting, there was a change in the acquisition of a vehicle, bought a used vehicle instead of buying new because of the 18-month lag, as it was announced. This was part of the capital Board of Finance had previously approved and the town had approved. And so my question just in general, is that something we didn't really know about, didn't have visibility to previously, in terms of the lead time of vehicles?
No, we were well aware of the lead time of the vehicles. The lead time on vehicles, anyone who tried to go purchase a vehicle themselves, it's well widely known that the lead time is significant. We were researching both new and used options leading up to the capital plan for that piece of apparatus for a number of months. The pricing in the new market is extremely volatile. I remember leading up to that, the meeting subsequent to the town meeting when the bonding was approved, we were working with Ron on the price to put in there, and I'd actually given him a price increase that we went into that meeting with. And even by the time we got to the meeting, the price almost became stale. We're seeing price increases every 90 days. You can go on Google, look for news articles on fire apparatus pricing, and you see municipalities around the nation getting hit with $300,000 to $400,000 increases on the large apparatus from when they originally planned for when they're taking delivery. There was an article last week of a municipality in upstate New York that had to get an additional $350,000 approved because they had to move away from a commercial chassis due to the availability into a custom chassis, which had faster availability. So there was a lot of decision-making that went into ultimately on why we proposed the used apparatus. One, we wanted to make sure we could stay within the authorized bonding that was approved, including the upfitting, which is equipment that would go on that vehicle. If we went to a new apparatus, not only would we have a significant lead time, we would be back here asking for more money. We didn't feel that was appropriate to do that. We wanted to live within the bonding authorization. We wanted to be able to take delivery of a piece of apparatus in a timely basis. At the end of the day, we were pretty lucky to be able to find essentially a new piece of apparatus on the used market. The vehicle's 2 years old with less than 4,000 miles on it. It's essentially new. And at a very, what we think is a very competitive price as the bid waiver package is laid out with all the market research we had done on both other used apparatus and new apparatus. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, yeah, it does. And it leads me into another question, and that is, and I'll point people to page 195, which is the 5-year capital plan. And so I have two questions. One is on the squad 73, which is it's where I saw the 2009 year, and that was the vehicle that I was referring to, and that's in this current plan, the 23-24 fiscal year plan that we're talking about. So if we now know that we've got these long lead times, does that really mean that maybe if you want to replace a vehicle 2 years hence or 3 years hence, we need to be funding it, now so that you can?
That's exactly the language we used when we presented this at the last meeting, that the reason the funding requests are happening earlier is because obviously the town can't place an order until there's committed funding. So this vehicle, if you go back 2 years, 5 years, look at the 5-year plan, was actually slated for replacement this year. So last year, I think we pushed it into 24, just saying like, well, this year's already passed, can't get it approved. And we said, look, we're going to keep it in this year, saying if you want to aim for a future delivery, funding needs to be approved. So a purchase order could be essentially written, whatever the right word is. So an order could be placed, so we'll take delivery. Lead times change on a daily basis. There's apparatus capacities coming online with certain of the manufacturers. I would say, once again, I'll say if an order was placed today based on current market intelligence, it's 18 months till delivery. When we submitted this capital plan back in November, actually earlier than that, I think. It might have been 14 months at the time, I don't recall, but the lead times are changing fairly dramatically. And my guess is, if I was to hypothesize, as you move into the future, at some point the lead time will abate. You know, capacity will open back up, orders will be canceled, and it'll be there. But the reality is, if we placed an order today, we'd be looking at 18 months.
So have you all, as three departments together, looked at the 5-year plan that's in the budget that we now have in front of us, which is essentially what the first selectman presented? Does that meet all of your needs for future vehicle replacements? Is everything in there in the right year in order to have this lead time that we're talking about?
I can't speak on behalf of the other two fire companies, but on behalf of the Monroe Fire Department, we are comfortable with the years we have slated. Now, I would say that the ones that are out in further years are more difficult to predict. So on row, I'm looking at Excel, so I'll say row 6, but the row that says engine tanker 75, we have that slated for 25, 26, which means delivery, like that I'm going to assume we have a abatement in the supply chain, we have 26, 27 delivery. But we also have in parentheticals there evaluate fiscal year 24, which means we will evaluate in the upcoming fiscal year a number of different things for that piece of apparatus, varying all the way from do we need to replace it? Maybe there's different, less expensive apparatus we can replace with, possibly a commercial tanker would be a cheaper piece of apparatus. Maybe we do need to replace it. Maybe its life is showing it can survive longer, given usage, utilization, repair costs. That's a constant evaluation of these pieces of apparatus. We always factor in, you look at what your regulatory bodies or your governing bodies say. In this case, the Fire Apparatus Identification, it's not law, it's recommendations, right? That would say, how long should this piece be a frontline service piece? Someone will correct me, I think it's 12 to 15 years for a main fire engine, right? So, by that point in fiscal year 24, we're going to be approaching 15 years, which would be what the NFPA would say max service life. But we'll look at that and say, can the vehicle have a continued frontline service life past that because of, the reality is we're a fairly small municipality, we're not New York City, does the truck have more longevity left in it? Or is there potential, the ability for the town to capture value by going out and replacing it and selling it? Maybe proceeds are high at that time because like right now you can probably sell used fire apparatus at great premium, just given the supply chain. So from a Monroe Fire Department standpoint, we are comfortable with the timeline, but it is a constant annual evaluation of what is the apparatus serving, how is it surviving, what is the repair and maintenance cost, and are there major issues coming up? You're also evaluating what's new on the market from a technology standpoint, from a staffing standpoint, from engine dynamics. There's a ton of engine regulations out there that just bring the costs all over the place. So right now, what we submitted in November, I'll say, we're comfortable with that timing. I'll let the other, I know the chief house here, I'm not sure if anybody's here, can speak about their apparatus.
Right. In our 5-year plan, the only thing we have in there is refurbishing the brush truck. And we are confident with that. That's not the same 18 months delay. So coming out in the 5 years, yes, as we get closer and that stuff moves, the apparatus moves into the 5-year plan, we will have to decide whether we got to jump that 2 years possibly. But right now, we're very confident in the 5-year plan.
I think that was it for me. Thank you.
I mean, Chris, we always had traditionally, year to 18-month lead times on trucks? I mean, from my recollection.
It's usually your build times for a year.
The year and a half.
So it depends what you include in the lead time. If you include bidding and spec building and the manufacturing time right now.
That's what I would
18 months.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay, cool. I don't have anything else. Anybody else have anything for the fire guys? Hearing nothing. Chris, have a nice evening. We got you out in a reasonable time.
Yeah, thank you for letting me go first. I can go deal with the 18-month-old now.
All right.
All right. Do we have anything else for the other departments before we?
Unless anyone else wants to comment on, just generally about apparatus and needs. So
Good.
that's really where my concern is that we flag it early enough and move it in if we have to.
Right.
Mike, this is Mary. I have one question for maybe all three of you gentlemen. It seems that the town council took your vehicle fuel down a bit from what you had submitted. Could you help me understand why?
We actually
Locked
don't.
in.
It's a lot lower
Locked
level.
in?
Yeah, it's all done through public works purchasing and everything on our usage.
All town departments were reduced to reflect favorable pricing that we locked in.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Since we mentioned DPW, should we go there next?
Thank you.
It's changing it up on us.
148.
Public Works begins on page 148.
That,
All right. Anybody have questions to start?
This is Steve. I have a couple of questions. Not surprisingly. On page 1,
I didn't say it.
that's okay. On page 149, the miles paved goes up through FY '22. Do we have an estimate for how much we will get done in this current fiscal year?
We have the original road plan that was handed out last fiscal for, well, I should say for this budget. Currently, we had 2.9 listed as a partial of a carryover. Currently, out of that 2.9, we are 2.5 completed, and we're sitting at another 2.5 that remains. And then we also have an additional 1.8 miles of complete drainage and paving that was projected, that we are going to, evaluate those roads against the recommendations from the VHB report that we should have next week. And also we have roads in about 2 miles worth listed for a preventative maintenance. So if you look at double highlight, if you will, that is a preservation technique. So the biggest and significant issue is we had supply chain issues. So we took advantage of the off winter months, and Bill, my deputy director here, was fantastic in ordering up pipe to get ourselves ahead of. That was the biggest, if you will, stumbling block that we were experiencing trying to move things forward. So that's our projection. We always look at the roads, evaluate them, and look at the VHB report to see if the recommendations still fall true.
So when we're all said and done, we're going to be up in the 6+ miles of roads.
Projected, yes. Whether or not we pull some of those off, some of the roads we currently have listed, I don't know if anybody's seen it, but out in the Barn Hill and the Sunset Hill, hillside area, that was the golf course area we call. We had roads projected we were going to do there, but we had aquarium presence in there.
Oh.
So we were waiting for that to complete their work prior to. We do the best we can in coordinate with us, with all the utilities. Certain things are outside of our control, but if we know they're impending, we may have, like currently we have a plot, right? So it's a data point, but it's not something that's going to be completed because they're not finished.
Okay.
We'll follow behind.
You brought up drainage, so let me go there. In the last 2 years, according to this chart, you've done a little over between 1 and 2 miles of drainage pipe. Do you have a number for how many miles of pipe or how many center lane miles of road have drainage that needs to be done? Do we have an overall picture of what the town needs to get done?
So we've talked about this in multiple different scenarios, whether it be finance or whether it's been town council specifically. And the cost in order to do and perform that is hundreds of millions of dollars. It is cost prohibitive to do that. So what we do instead is we look at the characteristics of the road, the age, and prior to the recommendations, we analyze those pipes ourselves, whether on camera equipment. So before we commit to any type of road work, we're doing our own evaluation.
And I'm all for that. I understand not the idea of not hiring somebody. My question's trying to go to how far down the road are we doing our analysis of the pipe? Are we just doing it, we're just looking at the roads we're gonna do next year and that's all the pipe? Or are we sending guys out one day a week and saying, go do as much pipe as you can do? How are we, getting that knowledge ahead of time is, I guess, what I'm trying to figure out.
So what we do is, and Bill can really speak to it more, is kind of coordinating with the staff, but like, you take advantage of this season, right? You got good weather around us, you go out and just do the analytics ahead. Predominantly, we're looking at the roads we're concentrating on to verify, but we do build ourselves ahead. I mean, if you can add to.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a very laborious task to go out there and, we send the camera down these pipes all the way. Then the person that's doing it, he makes a map of everything, shows where it is, shows the bad spots in the pipe, whether or not these pipes need to be replaced or not. Most of them do, because most of them are corrugated metal pipe. They have a lifespan of about, we're finding out roughly about 50 years, 60 years, and that's right where we are. They were put in the 70s and now they're gone. They're falling apart. So with that, like I said, we look at the roads that we feel need to be done, and we go and check the drainage on it. By going out 2-3 years, there's plenty of drainage that needs to get done. So with the VHB analysis that they give us, with our own knowledge of what's going on with the roads, and with the camera, we're getting a pretty good snapshot of what needs to get done, and that's how we're doing it. Then you got to throw in getting pipe, getting catch basin structures, getting the frames and grates for these catch basins. This has all been pretty difficult within the last couple of years. Now, is it getting better? Absolutely. So to your question, Steve, yeah, we do kind of go out ahead and have a good forecast of what we're going to do. But to go and do all of them and just try to get it done, we can't. I'll tell you right now, we can't. It's just not going to happen to get all of the drainage cameraed and everything. It wouldn't be very financially prudent.
Okay, well, again, given the supply issues, which you all have noted for, a couple of years now, to me, getting ahead of the game so that not only you can get the materials, but so that we can have some idea of how much we're going to spend or need to spend, or maybe we want to do a year where we do extra, quote unquote, extra, drainage. But my concern is we've got 147 million miles of road, and I don't really understand, is all of that going to need to be scoped? I mean, the road I live on is 30 years old. I have no idea what the pipe is made of.
Well, to speak to that is if it's concrete pipe, reinforced concrete pipe, usually that 80, 90 years, no problem. The corrugated metal pipe, no. So yes, there are some roads that maybe we look at and we're good for the drainage. But the idea of it is as we look at the roads we're going to pave, we check the drainage. We're not going to check a road and say, oh, gee, the pipe's bad on that road. Let's rip it up and then trench it and stuff. And I don't think that's what you're talking about. But again, if we see a road and there isn't, we found some of them that have all RCP, reinforced concrete pipe. But they're few and far between. So what we do is we replace the pipe that needs to be replaced when we're paving the road. The pipe that's good, we leave there because we know it's going to be good, which is the concrete pipe. and then we pave the road. And then you have a road that you're not gonna have to worry about drainage in that road for our lifetimes.
So if I looked at the roads that have not been repaved since we started this plan, do you have a feeling for what percentage of the roads the drainage will not need to be replaced and scoped on? We really don't know how big the pie is my question.
It's underground at that point, and in some sections, we've even found multiple types of pipe installed. So everything is, it's a surprise at some point. So I'd love to be able to tell you that, because then this conversation would be easy. Not, take the fun out of construction.
And let me just make one caveat to that, because I did say reinforced concrete. Not all reinforced concrete pipe is perfect. So, we found separation pipe, we found crack pipe, we found where there's poles been put through concrete pipe. So it's the camera that we use and everything like that is worth its weight in gold. So that's.
That I know. Okay, sticking with page 149, the catch basins cleaned. We've gone up year after year, which I guess is good. How many do we have? Or how often, what kind of cycle is a cleaning for a catch basin on? So that's really.
So we have roughly less new subdivisions coming in. We're roughly around 31,000 catch basins. So, 3,100, excuse me. So we try to do a 3-year cycle. So we shoot for 1,000 and, we concentrate, if you will, we have a listing of our low spots versus our, regular typical areas like say Fanville, right down by Jockey Hollow. That's always a collector for all those multiple roads. Those are on a higher frequency, but we know that because of the characteristics of topography. So we shoot for 1,000 bases.
Okay.
For our MS4 rating.
So you're on target. I think my last question is on the capital on page 193. And it's the line item, town-owned bridges and culverts. There's a bonding amount of 300,000. How many bridges and culverts is this intended to accomplish work on, or whatever?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but in essence, the state gets involved when the span is over 1 feet. So therefore, these are the bridges that are smaller. So the culverts that are now literally just a pipe, but instead it should be looked at and evaluated for condition, rated by priority, and determine if it should be a box culvert, which is some of the items we're looking at right now. This is a carryover item from the engineer, and it was an item tagged previously. So as we're working with an on-call right now, but then obviously our intention is to hire an engineer. We're going to reevaluate all this. It's plotted in, it's carried, but when we get into everything, there may be things we might not need to have replaced or addressed at a high value, make them sufficient as a regular item culvert.
When you say 20 feet, are you talking length or width?
Width.
Okay.
We all 20 feet up the road. Good at that point, then we decide it's safe enough to
Okay.
worry about funding.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Anybody else got questions for Mr. Krause? I'm calling him Krause. There you go. Too many Chris's in the room.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
All right, who do we have next up on the list? I'm in the car, so I don't have it in front of me.
The next one on the list says building,
Planning and zoning.
and then planning and zoning.
Perfect.
Did building. Just did building.
We want to start with building. Take 'em.
I didn't miss that.
Anybody have questions on building? Should we drag them here?
Yeah, I'm here.
No.
I didn't ask for, I don't know who asked for bonding.
I think it was Mary, wasn't it Mary? Did you ask?
I asked for planning and zoning.
Okay, I thought you asked for building as well. Okay. All right.
But I do have a question on
for it.
building. Where do you stand on a current year-to-date basis on the expenditures to March? You were at, are you going to hit the 215?
Expenditures?
Yeah,
What page are you on?
I'm on page 30.
You want, I can probably not, because we have some, go ahead, Ron.
I'm going to pull up the year-to-date
Yeah.
work for.
My guess is not. We have a assistant building official position that's still open, and John has recommended that we hold off at this time, given the difficulty in finding those folks, and he wants to,
Right now, there's a tremendous shortage of building officials in the state of Connecticut.
So is that one position that's open or two?
One,
One,
assistant building.
assistant building. So building salary other would be that person in the budget. And so you're going to not spend the budget this year, but you're bringing the budget back up in anticipation that you're going to
That's correct.
hire that person. And is it in the works? Is there viable candidates out there?
Currently, there are 37 candidates who are attending the state school.
Yep.
Become a building official. They will take the test in July. We have already expressed interest and sent our requirements to them, and they acknowledge that as soon as they graduate, they will pass it up to the respective building officials to see who's interested in coming to Monroe.
So you will not have a full year in the next year's budget of,
You could be shy 1 or 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
and how is that gonna hinder you on your performance?
I think we have a great staff.
we also have we have some per diem building officials still, some of them that were helping us out when we actually had no officials at one point. So that salary other line is utilized for those per diem folks. So if John needed in those couple of months to bring someone in, that's where that would come from. We would use the per diem folks to fill any, if John says, I need help, that's where we would go to.
And that per diem pipeline chain is decent.
Well, they are building officials in other communities that had agreed to basically moonlight here
They did
as contractors.
work with us again.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, sir.
John,
Looks like we're on to planning and zoning.
Z.
Okay, so this is Mary. I've got,
What page?
starts on page 97. And I actually want to talk about page 101. And I don't know whether, Rick, do I ask you this question or do I ask Bill the question on the overall reduction in salary lines from consolidation? My question basically is, okay, I know that it was consolidated based upon analysis of what was done in other towns. Could you share with us what other towns you looked at to take the town planner position and eliminate it and consolidate it?
I'd like to take a crack at that. We
Okay,
looked at the towns of Trumbull and Newtown. And we discussed it in great detail. As you know, too, we are going online permitting. That is a major transformation with the need of IT background. that in itself precipitated the move of the community and economic development position to take the lead. The two towns that I just made reference to are doing that, and they found that to work quite nice.
So in your discussion with Trumbull and Newtown, when they went that avenue, okay, because it was a new way to do things, did they encounter any issues up front? And if they did, how did they resolve those? And are we prepared in our situation, should those similar issues, if there were any, come up, are we manpowered enough to handle that?
Yeah, as with any significant changes, there's always hiccups.
Yeah.
But when you have the leadership, you will be prepared for that. And we do have the leadership, and we will be prepared for that. And I do not anticipate any major snags. Like I said, you have hiccups, and you deal with that. Going online is a major, significant change. I might add, it's long overdue. Case in point, the state of Rhode Island. All of the communities have done it, and it has worked quite well. I have contacted my peers in that state. They're part of the Southern New England planning group that I belong to. But to answer your question, in my opinion, my professional opinion, is the right direction to go, and we will be prepared for the changes accordingly.
Okay, so one final question then, on the online permitting, once it's there, people are like using it, is there anything built into this budget for looking at maybe surveying, okay, and getting feedback from individuals on how the online permitting is working?
Billy, why not take a crack at that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question for me?
Is there any dollars in the next year's budget to do any type of a survey or feedback from online permitters on what worked, what didn't work, what could be done better?
There is not a line item for that I know of. When we initially launched the online permitting for the mechanical permits, for HVAC, plumbing, and things of that nature, we released it to a small set of I'll call them power users. It was the rural gases of the world, the SIP and energies of the world, to be able to go in and beta test the system on our behalf. And I would reach out to those organizations to find out what they liked, what they didn't like, seek any comments that they have for improvement, and then bring that back to the developers to make the online experience a little bit more beneficial for them, be able to streamline that process. I would anticipate we would be doing the same thing with building permits. But I am, in fairness, having some difficulty in identifying power users in the building permit area. SIP and Energy, as you know, pulls plumbing permits and heating permits daily.
But
Builders, not so much.
so with the new development that's anticipated to be happening specifically on 25, you can't find power users?
Those plans have not come in yet, John, have they?
If I may, we've been working with solar, switching them primarily from electric to building permits.
Okay.
Small electric permit. Now having Bill said this, we can hook you up with our big solar people. Beautiful. And then you can reach out to them and offer this. Excellent.
Yeah, I don't think, I don't want to put words in Bill's mouth, but I don't think he's saying that we don't have, significant users. I think he doesn't have it's not like the mechanicals where you have the same entity that's frequently pulling permits again and again and again that lend itself to a beta test pool like that. So my comments on that, I think Mary, customer feedback makes 100% perfect sense. I could tell you at a few different levels. One is, in addition to the beta test, two, it's pretty evident when customers are happy or not happy. I don't necessarily need a survey to tell me that. We know that. We know when things are going. And particularly this set of customers are not shy about sharing their experience. That said, I'm certainly not opposed to a survey as well to solicit specifically information, but I don't think we would need to hire a firm or expend money to do that because the permitting system gathers email addresses. It would be simple crafting we could easily craft a survey with the tools we already have in-house and push something out.
Okay, so thanks, Ken. So maybe if we don't have the dollars for it, maybe another way to do it, because if people are upset, you're going to hear about it. They're going to be pounding on Rick's or Bill's door.
Yep.
So if you get the good feedback, okay, we should showcase that through the Monroe Sun or some type of publication to show the improvement that the town planning has made to bring us to this next level, including the online permitting.
I agree.
Fantastic.
I agree. We got a lot of happy customers on the mechanical permits. They were very appreciative and happy with it. So good point.
Thank you. That was my questions.
Mike, this is Steve. I've got one for all the gentlemen. This is just a general question in terms of salaries within the department. And you talk about finding people for various jobs. Are all of the salaries in general competitive with what's out there, with what other towns are offering? Or do we have any issues where we need any kind of improvement?
My position, it's in sync with the surrounding towns. Once again, you have these highs going up because, as we discussed in great detail with the town council, it's changed dramatically.
I think I can address that. We actually, so as part of the annual budget process, I now have the HR department revise the pay plan for those in the classified service every year and propose all those changes to council. That was actually done at the last meeting and adopted. And those changes incorporated inflationary adjustments. They incorporated the revisions that are in this budget. And there were some positions in line with the authority that this board gave me to, utilize extra funds for certain positions that had specific credential requirements that were difficult in filling. We've made sure that the ranges still accommodate that and they're budgeted accordingly. So I feel a lot more comfortable than, I did previously as relates to those positions. As Rick said, there'll probably be, there are always some hiccups, we've had, I've heard some pretty surprising stories in the public health departments across the state. We think we're in pretty good shape. Our department's really right back where it needs to be. We only have one open spot, but we'll hear anecdotal stories of health inspectors getting hired for more than directors are making in some communities, but that's, you're going to have outliers. So
That I understand.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that, and I saw the pay plan adjustments, but from their perspective of their expertise in terms of what's out there and actually having, looked at or talked to the corresponding town. Okay.
Mike?
Mike, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hit my button. I was talking, you didn't hear me. Cool. All right, anybody have anything else?
Well, Mike, I have one request, not for the people here. Last year, this is really directed to the first selectman. Last year, there was a document, for lack of a better term, that was the review and justifications for capital projects. Does that document, was the same methodology used this year?
Yeah,
Does that document exist?
They're the project concept documents that are used for the capital submissions?
Yes.
Yeah, those, yeah.
Can we get a copy of that? It was used for the evaluation this year, like you passed out last year. I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right.
So next
we
time,
have?
Mike, we're doing revenue bonding and fund balance.
I was just going to say, so we have the list. Right. Sounds perfect. All right. Sounds good.
Steve Kirsch, motion to adjourn.
Mary Hall, second. Thank you.